This is the voice of Agrat, and you are listening to the Love Potion podcast with TDavy and Billycakes.
Welcome back to the Love Potion podcast, brought to you by NLT-Media. I'm Davey, and I am joined by my Canadian co-host, Billy. Welcome back. How are you?
Good. I'm much better than what I was. I definitely wasn't in a place to have any form of conversation in August. It was a pretty bad time. And I don't really mind, discussing it a little bit, but the nitty-gritty at the end of the day is if you have health concerns, go see your doctor, get yourself checked. If you have any form of ongoing or chronic condition, make sure you take meds if you need them. Make sure you take care of yourself, because otherwise you could be in a pretty shitty situation. Hopefully I can say that. If not, we can bleep it.
No, that's true. Chronic illnesses are something not to be messed with, but something that's not discussed quite widely as they probably should be. But yeah, that's a conversation for another day and probably another podcast. We're not educated enough to talk about chronic illnesses. In that sense, you are so poorly, you haven't even been able to watch last month's episode or any of the interviews I'd done with the voice actors. That's how poorly you have been.
I honestly haven't been doing much. There was a period of time in August where I had to use a chair in the shower because I couldn't stand. So it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I'm just really feeling better.
Yes, well, that's good. Do you want to let the viewers know we've got the next few podcasts planned out? You know, we like to be planned. We like to be ahead of time. Do you want to let them know what's coming up in the next 3 months?
Yes. So November 2nd, we're going to interview the other animator that's been working with NLT, Joraell. I think that's how you properly pronounce it. He's joined, I think, since Symphony of the Serpent started. So it'll be good to have him on because we can talk to, I guess, the other half of, the Ramsey conversation. We focused on how he was working with lip syncing and character expressions and all that kind of stuff. And I think Joraell does a little bit of a different animated work. So it'll be interesting to have him on and talk about that. He's also, I believe, Davey, you mentioned a game developer. So we can talk about his experiences with being creative and making his own product and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I spoke to him this morning just to try and see if he would be interested in the podcast, and he is. And by the sounds of it, he's made 3 games. Making games is not particularly his passion. He really enjoys just animating. And from reading what we call the content creators chat, which is the chat of where everyone builds all the stuff for the new updates, he does a lot of the adult scenes. And I've seen him comment a few times about some things that he definitely does struggle with. He's been a little bit more open about discussing those, which is, there's nothing wrong with saying to that. He says to NLT sometimes you just, do the ejaculation scenes, for example, because that's fluid motion. It's maybe not something that is his strength, but he does a lot of the adult scenes, and I think they've been very good as well. I know a lot of the side girl content he's done as well, so we'll definitely be able to talk to him about all of that and, whatever he has been up to outside of that as well, including his free games that he has fully built. It's not many developers that you'll find in the adult gamer space that can say they have free games all done and dusted and wrapped up, and his last game was done over a year ago. So that's definitely something that you don't see too often.
Absolutely. For the December 2nd episode, Davey, you and I are going to do a tier list showdown extravaganza, which should be pretty fun. We're going to focus on the 4 games: Lust Epidemic, Treasure of Nadia, The Genesis Order, and Symphony of the Serpent. We're only going to do those characters in case anyone is curious. I think that's going to be a lot of fun because it's going to show our different tastes in characters, particularly just the designs, because for me, I primarily focus on the designs. but it'll be fun. I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, definitely. We're also asking the community to fill out their tier list as well, so we can compare the data of what the community is voting for as the best characters. We're going to do all of the women separately ourselves, and then we're going to come together and collaborate on doing one for all of the male side characters, because, you know, the male side characters are also very important in these games, as we will discuss later on in this episode when we start talking about the games that we're going to be doing a little rundown through. So yeah, we'll also do that as well. So yeah, there's going to be a link in the podcast channel, just somewhere in the Discord. I'll make an announcement for it. There's going to be a new tier list. Just wanted to try and get as many of you guys out there to do that ahead of the December 2nd episode. We'll probably record that mid-November, just so we can see what we like and also see what the community likes as well.
I'm just messing around with the tier list right now. In the new year, for January 2nd, what we're planning on doing is having NLT back as a guest to kind of check in on the past 6 months of development with Symphony of the Serpent, get him more feedback and questions. So if anyone listening to this has any burning questions inside that they want to ask NLT, please get them either to Davey and I directly or through our form that we check every time before we do this podcast. So it should be fun to have NLT on again. I think having NLT on as a consistent guest is actually a lot of fun, because dialoguing is just very interesting when it comes to the ongoing development of this game. Don't you think?
Well, things change all the time, right? We know that, and we also know that he's also watching all of the podcasts and learning himself. He's listening to Ramsey, he's listening to Samantha, he's also listening to these voice actor podcasts, and he's taking obviously information out of that as well. Also, we will trawl all the YouTube comments. There's been some great comments on all of the podcast episodes so far. So if you want to just put a YouTube comment down, I'll definitely will trawl all of that and put them all in a big sheet, and then we'll try and get as many of them to NLT as we can. Obviously, no promises, and we're going to be able to ask all of them, but we'd like to try and get as many of them. That, and also with it being January 2nd, it's going to be 2026. We can have a look forward to what 2026 is probably going to look like for NLT-Media. What a Symphony of Serpent. Is it going to make it to Steam or not in time by the end of the year? We'll probably have a little discussion on that as well. And that's probably a pretty nice segment for us to go to news and notes, because Steam once again is in the news, and it's not great for adult games once again. Steam, after their recent deal with MasterCard and Visa, we obviously know that they put out a pretty stern statement when it comes to their adult games on their platform. They're going to do a little bit of an audit. Itch.io also followed that in the same way. Steam is now saying they are banning early access for games with mature themes. We reached out to the Zilla team to have a little conversation with them, because they know a lot more information than us. And they said basically you can't do any post-launch patches. And if you want to add content to a game after launch, it has to be a DLC. So if Symphony of the Serpent makes it to Steam as an early access game, the full game is going to come as a DLC, which is interesting. It'll probably be a free DLC, but it'll be a DLC.
Yeah. I mean, everyone seems to use DLCs these days. Look at the new Pokemon game announcement, for example. I know that's putting me in a certain category, but they haven't even released the game yet, and they've announced the DLC. Obviously, it's a very different type of game, but DLCs are just so common these days anyway. I guess it's more of a cash cow kind of thing for the developers, whereas NLT doesn't do that, just because we want to have a finished product on Steam. The story finishes at a certain percentage. Treasure of Nadia was 92%. The Genesis Order was like 80 something percent. I think it was 86, 84, 86. Someone's going to page me on that, but that's fine. Once the story was done, they went up onto Steam, and NLT continued to do the bonus content updates, and then people had to wait for all of it to be done at the same time. Likely that'll be the case with Symphony of the Serpent as well. We just don't know how long the gap is going to be from story completion to everything completely done and dusted with a bow on it and then put out as a DLC.
Yeah, unless NLT decides to hold the game back entirely until it's 100%, and then it goes up as one big lump on Steam. Who knows? It's weird. We had a little bit of a conversation last week, actually, about this, and he said that he did use the feedback that TGO got in its early access build to refine the game on the final moments for that final update. He might not be able to do that for Symphony of the Serpent, so he might have to heavily rely on the patrons even more than what they already are when it comes to feedback-wise. So we're unsure on what's going to happen there. You know, things are changing all the time with Steam by the sounds of it. So just, you know, check your Twitters. We'll try and keep everything updated as well when it comes to this podcast. Also, listen to channels like Sex Positive Gaming, and he's doing a great job of covering all of this news as it breaks as well. And yeah, hopefully Steam starts sorting itself out. Maybe we don't know this. We haven't had a discussion about this as well. Maybe itch.io is a path that the release goes down. Instead, like an early access release goes to maybe itch.io, or maybe it goes to GOG, because GOG seems to be a company that's quite happy with adult games at the moment, while Steam isn't. So it's interesting. To talk about itch, we also have a little bit of, we're not sure when this is going to happen or what version it's going to be, but there's been discussions of a free demo going on itch for Symphony of the Serpent.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be good. That's where the demos have been for all the previous other games. I think having options just in general, you know, you can test out the game, but now with purchasing the game, having itch as an option would be great. People have asked for that. GOG, you've already mentioned, is another good option. The 3 games are currently on there already. Steam's just so like mainstream and accessible and known, I guess, right? That it's just it's the main driving force, I guess, in terms of getting the game out there, just because the audience base is so big, which, you know, we can announce that there's going to be a Steam Autumn sale for all 3 of the games if people don't own them. Obviously, as we're recording this and as it comes out, it's going to be to patrons only. But at the same time, you know, you like achievements, you want these games in your library, so you can kind of like show off playtime and be like, oh, I'm so great, I play lewd games. You could get them on Steam at a discounted rate, which is great. Or you can just keep playing them on Patreon. You could tell people, share the news. Be just like, hey, try something different. You never know, you might actually enjoy it, right? Like, people have come on to the Discord and said, I came for the lewd and I stayed for the story. You know what I mean?
Also, I had a thought and it's just gone straight out of my head. You son of a bitch.
It'll come back.
It's my brain. That's not guaranteed. I know what I want to say. Every now and then we get asked by Patrons, can we get a free Steam code for the game because we've been like a high tier Patreon for a certain amount of time. That, from what I've been told, is not our decision. Steam will not allow us to do that. If, by all sounds of the point, if we could do that, we would, and there would probably be a tier that says at the end of this tier, after like 3 months or whatever, you get a Steam key or whatever. Steam won't just hand keys out willy-nilly because that's not the way that they work. They want the payments to be going through them. They want, you know, all of the stuff like that. So, yes, that would be a great thing to do. We can't do it because of Steam, not us, and we're really sorry about that, which is annoying. Another side note, if you even are not interested in buying the games, it's a bit like liking a YouTube video. If you go onto Steam and wishlist a game, it kind of like promotes the game up the list. So other people will then discover it. And then the more people we get discover it, the more people buy it. And then the more people buy it, there's more money in the industry to build more of these games. You know, hire great animators like Joraell and Ramsey Sheep and or Sumatra or all of these other fun people. So yeah, if you've got no interest in buying the game, please just go wishlist it on Steam. It does help us out. It's a pretty nice thing in that way.
Nice.
Yeah.
And speaking of the games, we want to take a little bit of time and talk about the 3 of them a little bit, just from our own perspective. Maybe offer a couple hot takes, maybe be a little bit controversial. with who we like and what we didn't like and all that kind of stuff, just to kind of get some dialogue going, maybe a little hint of that nostalgia.
Yes.
Maybe it'll make you go back and play the games and watch a few scenes, go back and quote unquote research some more,
Here is your spoiler warning for this episode. We're going to be discussing all of the games and their major plot lines, so please use the timestamps below to skip all of the games that you have not played yet, so you have nothing spoiled. Otherwise, continue watching. Yeah, there's also a few people on the feedback forum have not played all of the games. They've only played like one or two of them, or none of them, in fact. So, if you haven't played all the other games, especially if you're a patron, you have access to these other games, you should probably go play them. There's only a Symphony of the Serpent update every 2 weeks. So, trust me, you could bin through Lust Epidemic in a day. I've done it. It might not be the best way to consume all that content, but it's possible. We'll start with Lust Epidemic, and you've put on the doc that I've got to take lead on this one. Why have I got to take the lead on Lust Epidemic, Billy? Do you want to tell everyone why?
Okay, here's the first controversial thing that is going to be said is I never really fully played the game. Let me explain before everyone gets their pitchforks out on me. I found Treasure of Nadia first, out of boredom during the pandemic, and we're going to talk about that piece a little bit later.
Yeah.
I saw there was Lust Epidemic. I gave it a shot, and I was just like, you know what? The animations aren't where I need it to be personally for me to enjoy what's being presented. And I was on the Discord server, and I messaged NLT, and I asked him for save files. He gave them to me. I consumed all the content that I wanted to, and I was good.
Back in the day where NLT actually had time to answer DMs.
Yeah, that's the long and the short of it.
Now, if you need a DM like that, please come to me and Billy. Don't at NLT in the server either.
5 years ago was the first time I messaged NLT in 2020. Actually, 5.5 years ago, which is pretty wild that time flies. And that's not even how old Lust Epidemic is. Right? Like, this game is now, 6 years old?
Yes.
So bring us into it, Davey. Talk about what sets Lust Epidemic apart from the other games currently.
So for me, I still think it's the best atmosphere and the best story. I think it's down to, we had a conversation in the Discord actually about smaller areas for these games to be built upon. Lust Epidemic is, an old school on some old grounds, and it's a forest. There's not the massive areas that you can go to. I would compare it to the Wilkes' mansion in TGO. That's pretty much the size. If you've played TGO and you haven't played Lust Epidemic, think of the Wilkes' mansion and then the outside area and a little bit of the forest. That's the size of Lust Epidemic. It is not that big, and it really does just hone you into this really tight, very atmospheric game where it's got some darker tones. It is a murder mystery, spoilers in that sense, and it just sets the scene in such a great way. There's a hurricane that destroys a bridge, which means the characters are trapped in this school, and then they're in the school because there's this drama going on with a sex scandal, and there's a competition between these two schools, and then there's a news reporter who's kind of being bribed into reporting against East State University for St. James University, and all of that drama is unfolding. And then I think quite early on into the game, there's a dead priest, and then he's not there, and then it all just starts kicking off very, very quickly. I have a few gripes with Lust Epidemic, and I think it shows its age, right? We were in a very different place of the world back when Lust Epidemic was being written. PC culture was a lot less, and we're only going back 6 years, but that's how much the world's changed. There's a few times Simon's called some not very nice words, so that's a little bit jarring to see. You're that's something you can't say nowadays, which is definitely that. And I also just do not like Brad, the MC. I think Brad, the MC, is the worst MC by a mile, and it's not even close. If you want a fantasy roleplay that you are a character, he's not the guy you want a fantasy roleplay being.
Yeah.
at all. I guess you got that from the small snippet of the game that you played.
Yeah, the very, 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 very small snippet I played. Yeah. I'm just joking. I did play it a little bit. Like, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like, 2 minutes and I'm out. You know, I played it a little bit, and yeah, Brad was. I mean, he just seems weird to me. Obviously, there's been talk of this cast in comparison to the bigger casts that we now have. You know, the four main women. Everyone's like, oh, they're all too busty. They're all too similar. They're not different enough. Yada yada yada. It's the first game, and that let NLT jump off and pursue something, much more ambitious in the later games. But people really like that tight, tense environment, and that can be a double entendre in and of itself.
Yeah, also, I think you can look at some of the supporting cast in Lust Epidemic as probably some of the strongest supporting cast in the NLT universe. I think Simon is the hero of Lust Epidemic. If you disagree, you're wrong. It's my opinion on that one. If you look at it, if you play Lust Epidemic, you're gonna completely understand. Simon's the guy who helps trap Tillman. Simon's the guy who kills Tillman. Simon is the hero. Brad's just there for whatever reason. The fact that Andy, Simon, and Brad end up as like the trio to save the day is hilarious. Also, Simon's the only one who's like, oh yeah, I believe you, buddy. Let's go watch with a shotgun and try and catch the big evil monster, while the rest of them's like, oh, let's just go hide in a basement and disappear and wait for this all to wash over. So we could talk about Lust Epidemic for like hours upon hours, because there's so much to it as well. Like, I really highly recommend, if you haven't played it in a while, just go back and play it. Like, go read the news paper articles that are in the game, and then obviously eventually, the great reveal at the end of the game of Madeline and what that leads into, and also the truck being dumped into the river. And in discussions with NLT, I don't know how public, like the whole, like, he's like got a map in his head of like where stuff is, and Cape Vedra is downstream from Lust Epidemic, or where that is set. And it's also really interesting because like Cape Vedra, the island, is mentioned really early on in Lust Epidemic, of like, oh, the hurricane's like, it was aimed for the island and then it kind of switched paths and now it's on us. And it's just a really interesting how tightly knit that opening game is, and like all of the little hints to the future to come, which is really nice. You also look at like Amber Harrison is from Channel 4. Channel 4 is the news station that ends up in TGO. Like, that's NLT going back, finding lore and like going, oh, I can use that again, and it makes everything knit back together very nicely, which is what I just like about Lust Epidemic, because I think it's very well knitted together.
Yes. And that's essentially because he restricted himself with environment, cast, all that kind of stuff, right? With limits.
Yeah, the scope is a lot less.
If you limit the cast, if you limit the setting, you have to work it differently. And I guess we can transition now to, because you're mentioning Cape Vedra. So moving towards downstream to Cape Vedra and Treasure of Nadia, it was such a big shift in comparison to Lust Epidemic, basically doubling the cast. You have a completely different environment that is way more expansive in terms of locales, setting, how you interact in the environment, additional features to the game, which we'll get into a little bit. So, that was where I found the game 2020. I think that's where a lot of our active long-term members on Discord found the game. It was, I would say, out of not boredom, but looking for something to occupy one's time with being locked down due to COVID.
Yeah.
And it really did build a big feeling of community, at least for me, when I first hopped onto the server, started chatting, and experienced the updates twice a month, basically. There's so much speculation going on. There were people who essentially put on tinfoil hats with the lore of the game and what was going to happen, and theorizing about what comes next, or what the history was that led a character to do something. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I mean, the setting helped with that because we had a very tropical, relaxed type of feeling. We also had that with a more laid back golden retriever type of main character in Henry, which some people loved, some people hated. But the cast was also going back to the harem. We had such a diverse cast come in. Like Madeline became part of the cast, teased at the end of Lust Epidemic. And then we have not just basically MILFs. We had MILFs. Shout out to Janet, Naomi, and Sophia. But then we also have characters kind of in like a quote unquote like middle age range. Like you have Claire and Diana, who are more mature but not motherly, if you will. And then we have younger characters like Aaliyah, Emily, and Kaylee. So there's just so much diversity in the cast, so fans can skimp over a few and, you know, not have to worry about not having anyone, for example. I mean, fan favorites that stand out from the game is Madeline, Jessica, and Claire based on feedback responses. But, you know, there's fans for all of the characters out there. And it's just a fun game. I mean, playing it episode to episode or update to update was a way different experience than if you were to start the game fresh and play through like right now, particularly with like things such as fishing or grinding for money. And I'll let you take it from here to kind of lean into those things and talk about the other features, Davey.
The thing that's really interesting with Treasure Nadia is I think it's probably the best game to play as a patron week to week than compared to like as a full game to binge. Because yeah, while you have Eve, which is Evie is the first guide character, she's not particularly the most helpful at times, and you can definitely get lost in Treasure Nadia at times if you're not really paying attention and really like trying to keep an idea of, you know, the thing with the way like that story works is you'll do something for like Parissa over here, and then you'll bounce over to help Claire, and then you've got to remember what you had the conversation with Parissa like 20 minutes ago in gameplay, because now it's Parissa's gameplay back again, and you've got to bounce between all these different stories, and you got to keep that all in your head. If you're not following the walkthrough, I generally don't know how you would get through Treasure Nadia perfectly, especially trying to find all of the hidden stuff. Some of the hidden stuff in that game, there's no hope in hell finding it. There's a reason why the guides are there. There's a reason why there's the extras guide. And there's many time people will come into the Discord, they bought the game on Steam, for example, and they're like, I got to 98%, I'm missing 3 things and I can't find them. And I'm like, you'll need the extras guide, because there's not a chance in hope in hell we're going to be able to find it for you either.
Well, there's also so many extras that it's like you can't necessarily pinpoint it down exactly to which one it is. That's why I made the extra guide, because there's 60 of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them you get handed to you through the story, but in bonus content, like, you know, there's a fair amount of stuff you have to unlock. And, you know, adding those things really made the game feel bigger, more of like a interconnected world. Like just collecting the character profiles was kind of like a really cool aspect, right? Like, and then you go in and you're just like, all right, here's a whole bunch of puzzles.
Yeah, and then like the grind for money is built the way, because that's the way NLT actually intended. He wanted you to spend, you know, the odd 20 minutes grinding for money. You got the boost from Jessica, you got the boost from Parissa, you were then meant to go and grind for some money for a bit, build up some like finance, and then go back to doing the story for a bit, and then I've now unlocked a few puzzles, and if I complete the puzzles I get a couple of treasures, and that will give me a little bit more money. And I mean, the fastest way to get money at the start of the game, if you really, really want to do it, you know, it's a terrible idea, but just go fish. You'll make loads of money. The fishing game is there, and it's probably one of NLT's favorite like side pieces he's made, because of the way the RNG is, and he loves that.
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot of the community did not like. I've been very vocal in saying that I wasn't a fan of it, and when I needed to catch Bruce for one of the puzzles, I came to you for a save file. So, you know, I suppose I also skipped content in Treasure and Nadia, not quite as much as you did in Lust Epidemic, but
there was a my Bruce is bigger than your Bruce period of time on the server where people were just peacocking and being like, "Oh, I caught the biggest one. Oh, I'm better than you."
I mean, that's pretty cool though.
Yeah, those people know who they are, especially if they doctored their results.
Are you saying people use Photoshop?
Yeah, I am definitely. Definitely. I don't use Photoshop. I don't even have it. I'm basically what you would call a Luddite when it comes to technology.
I think a lot of people also love Treasure Nadia for the supporting cast, like the male characters in it. Albert probably is the favorite, right? There's a reason why there's a merchandise hat that NLT even owns himself. He has an Albert hat.
Yeah.
You know, I really like Ash. I think he's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's great. He's just a goofball, and the fact he just ends the game like just dancing in the jungle is just hilarious to me. Like, he goes through a whole, like, it basically has a mental breakdown, but the game makes it very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Michael, who is just, I don't know, he's just a blithering idiot, but he's quite funny as well, really. But you got like the goons as well. Claire's goons are pretty comical as well at times, especially Joey, not Korn as much.
Yeah, Korn. The best supporting actor on the side was Richard, who shits out his dick in the in the full mast bar.
Yes. Oh, that's a isn't that also Kaylee's original boyfriend or something?
Yeah, it's like I think it was like more like the quote unquote boyfriend. I think she was trying to make Henry jealous, I think. So he was the original guy.
And then in TGO, he's in one of the police files as a meme.
Yeah, I have it. It's his name is Richard Johnson, so Dick Johnson. So there you go. He's classified as Buttman, and his last reported sighting was Cape Vedra. And the description they have in TGO, and we'll transition to talking about it, is that he has a unique ability to shit out of his dick. His bowel problems were used as a weapon by Duncan Helmer to take down the Guardian gang.
It's that little, like, small nuggets of lore that just do get lost until you start replaying the game. It's a little bit different for us because you were a beta tester for Treasure Nadia, right?
I joined in as just a patron, and then I can't remember exactly around what percentage. I think it was probably after halfway. I joined in as a beta tester, and then by the time I think the game was done, before the story was done, I was in the story group. So I moved through fairly quickly with that, just in terms of being an annoying active server member. But, you know, those types of things are always funny to kind of like go back to, for sure. Like just bringing him into TGO just as a joke is hilarious, especially if you catch it, because it was in one of the video files where the main character in TGO is like scrolling through a computer to doing some snooping, and then you have to catch him. And if you don't catch it, then it's just gone, right?
Yeah, exactly. We also should note that Treasure Nadia did also win Steam Adult Game of the Year when it released on Steam. That's why we're going to then get into the Genesis Order, because it was following what a lot of people would say is perfection. And, you know, what happens when, you know, a band tries to follow up what a perfect album, or a film director tries to follow up a perfect movie, never quite goes the way you want it. The Genesis Order, you were a part of the testing and story group from the bat, and you've got a gripe with the story that you were quite vocal about in story group. Do you want to start with that?
Imposter syndrome / like a sequel issue, on top of the fact that I think, and this is the biggest piece, is that I felt there were too many cameos from Treasure of Nadia in the Genesis Order, and I really wanted the Genesis Order to be its own game, and I felt it heavily relied on too many characters from the previous game to move things forward, and that kind of took away, I think, the individuality and how we connected with the newer characters. And to qualify that, I guess, a little bit more, is like, we've talked to NLT about this, and he said this in interviews, is Jessica and Priscilla or Priscilla, or however you say it. We're going to get him to clarify that January 2nd. They were initially in Treasure of Nadia for like a transactional purpose, and they weren't supposed to be like fully fleshed out characters and involved as much as they were by the end. They were really well received. He decided to implement them. Fantastic. You go to the new game and you start at the beginning with 12, and all of them have to be involved in some capacity. But then you're bringing in Madeline, Henry, Tasha, Aaliyah as a guest. Duncan was introduced previously, so he continues on. Diana shows up.
Simon's there at some point as well.
Yeah, it felt like just a lot of characters, and I get that, you know, geographically it's in a similar area. Characters are potentially going to interact, but it made me feel disconnected with the newer cast. And that's not to say that the cast was bad. Like, Melissa is a huge favorite within the community, and I think that's mixed with the fact that she is a very dominant personality, but is also brown. You know, it's not just all white people. Not to say that it's been all white people, but if you have some diversity, things can stand out a lot better, and you can connect with a wider base of people. Because, I mean, this can be a bigger conversation, is just, not like whitewashing, so to say, but not having diversity in games can be a good thing or a bad thing. I would lean more to a bad thing. But anyway, Melissa was fantastic. I loved Andrea. A lot of people loved Hannah, because of her comedy. It was, and her and Aaliyah bounced off of each other when they were interacting with each other in the game. But characters like Kim felt flat to me. People didn't really like Chloe. People felt that the dynamic between Heather and Carol wasn't the same as like Janet and Naomi, and that's where the comparison and the quote unquote like issues, imposter syndrome, sequel issues come up from, because it's being compared so directly to the previous game. And not to say that you're not making unique characters, but you're going to get comparisons. And if you're relying on the previous characters too much in the game, it just makes it fall flat to me. Not to say that I didn't enjoy the game, but it was also a very different experience for me to be starting at the beginning as a tester, as a story group member, and knowing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And then moving through the game as it happened. So it was, it was interesting. It's not a bad game at all. I mean, there was definitely improvements and changes that NLT wanted to focus on from Treasure of Nadia, like things like the money grind, things like the pathfinding or wayfinding. Like, there were way more marking indicators on the map of where you had to go to progress, for example, right? So it's not that it's bad. I just feel that it's always going to be in the shadow of its predecessor. And you can see that as a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but I think that it hinders it from thriving and excelling more than it doesn't.
I mean, has the Madeline storyline ever not been in any of these games so far? Like, she's in Lust Epidemic. There's a photo of her next to Catherine. Catherine mentions her quite early on in the game. Just shout out to Catherine's ass, by the way. It's the best ass in the NLT-Media universe. And then she goes into Treasure of Nadia, and she's there as a horror member. Then she is basically the main point of the story when it comes to the Genesis Order. And then you could say that in some way she's in Symphony of the Serpent.
How could you say she's in Symphony of the Serpent?
Well, she's not, is she? Because it's Lillian Lilith, right? But
no, that's TGO.
Yeah, but like, they're kind of connected.
Oh, I see. Yes, technically her shell is being used by Lilith to be Lillian in Symphony of the Serpent. However, her shell is not autonomous as Madeline as we know it.
Yeah, it's so she's somewhat there, but she's not really. Which is why we can't see Madeline in Symphony Serpent, because she's already there in somewhat sense, which is weird to say.
I won't be surprised if she's somehow back in some capacity in Symphony of the Serpent. I wouldn't be surprised if NLT does that. As far as I know, that's not in the cards, but
I think leaving Madeline away is probably the best move going forward, especially the way that you described all the cameos, right? Like, it's interesting to have this discussion just after the Claire fight and the reveal in Symphony of the Serpent and her interactions with Ethan. So that's definitely an interesting thing. We can probably talk about that later on when we talk more about Symphony of the Serpent in depth with NLT in the future and what the thought process is there. The other one thing that the Genesis Order gets a little bit of criticism for is too much fantasy. And the fantasy stuff's interesting because it's a way of doing BDSM without labeling it as BDSM, which then gets, I'm not saying around the Patreon rules, but it blends into the Patreon rules in a way that gets it past, if that makes sense. NLT's not being scary about it, but it's a way of showing control without using like chains and bondage gear in that sense. But I know a lot of people don't like that fantasy stuff because it takes them out of it, and yeah, that's what you like. I understand that. It's a little bit different. The whole going to hell and thing it's a religious based fantasy storyline, so you're gonna have to just accept that. It's been there from Lust Epidemic, really, if you look at Father Parker and the way he is in Lust Epidemic. So you can't say that the storyline hasn't been coming for a long time. The changes to the money grind in TGO were a good improvement from what the community said. And we also know that TGO was built for Patreon by Patreon feedback. And that's what makes some of it too fast paced if you play the game in one big bunch. Like there's moments where you have too many sex scenes too fast, or the storyline races through certain aspects where it probably shouldn't. That's just, when you have two story updates a month, and each story update has to have a certain amount of sexual scenes in it, you're gonna come up to that into a problem at times, especially the way you can race through TGO at times if you know what you're doing. And then no fishing game was cut out because NLT just ran out of time. I know the fishing short just went out on YouTube as we asked him the question in the first episode of the podcast. I think he just ran out of time in that one.
Yeah, when people saw that lake on the map, I think there was some like PTSD flashbacks that were happening for some people. Like, oh, shite. I do not want to do this again. But it's kind of a shame that it didn't come back, because that was going to be fresh water, I think, versus the salt water in Treasure of Nadia. I want to quickly just go back to the too much fantasy thing in your comment about BDSM. It's interesting because it's like too much fantasy. But here's the thing. Fantasy also existed in Treasure of Nadia, and it exists in all of NLT's games, but like it was presented in a different way in Treasure of Nadia. It was the temple and the Toma, or no, the Toma was TGO. It was the temple stuff in Treasure of Nadia, whereas it was more supernatural with the Toma statue doing supernatural things in the Genesis Order. So like one's very like, I don't want to say primitive, but like, kind of rustic and old, whereas another one seems way more fantastical. So it's similar things presented different ways. And it's interesting how when that happens, you have people who are tolerable to one and dislike the other, or they really like one and don't like the other, or they like both, which is fantastic. But it's just interesting how that's a thing.
It's also interesting to think about it now if we look at Symphony of the Serpent, because you've got characters like Agrat and Impusa, but you've also got characters like Cleo. So it's kind of both of them coming together.
And that's good that we have variety. Like variety is the spice of life. You want to be able to choose. You want to be able to, enjoy different things. And I think NLT continues to do a pretty good job at trying to cater to all of that. It's so hard to satisfy everybody, right? In anything, in work, in your interpersonal relationships, in politics, in music, like you said, every kind of like arena and realm. It's so hard to satisfy everyone if they're a fan of you, right? Like, oh, why did they change their sound on the second record? Like, I love their first album. Like, just remake the first album. Like, that's not what creativity is.
No, there's no progression there. There's no evolution.
Exactly. If there's one thing that you can pull and enjoy, you know, like TGO, Andrea was my favorite. She was kind of the main one. I really liked Melissa, but like I didn't like as much as the cast as I did the previous game. It's not a bad thing. I also don't need to then bash, other people and who they like. If you like Nelly, fantastic. I don't really like Nelly. Kim fell flat for me. I didn't like him. Some people really liked Kimberly.
Yeah, I like Ella. I thought Ella was cool.
Ella was definitely cool. And again, the inspiration from that character, wherever it may have been, quote unquote, inspired from.
Ilwo.
Her character still had some depth. She was comedic, but, had her softer, like she had comedic moments. She had softer moments. She had like more assertive and aggressive moments. Like her character was diverse.
Yes.
It's just the appearance, whether or not you like it.
The last thing I think we have on our list when it comes to TGO is the puzzles came back in TGO with a real vengeance with them, obviously with the additions to the goblins, and also NLT built like the puzzle maker where you could go make your own puzzles, and it ended up being my job for the majority to have those built and tested and ready for the game, and then I made a few that the community didn't like because they were hard. Go back to listen to like NLT's interviews. He likes staring at a screen and struggling to do stuff for like hours. He likes tricky puzzles. So I know when I was building those tricky puzzles, if he got to test one, he was going to be loving it if it was really hard. You guys, as a community, you might not. So there you go. Which, your feedback has spawned the fighting. So, which is a very different system.
Which some people like and some people don't like right now.
It's so interesting reading the feedback for him, because it's like we say like, oh, what do you like the most? What do you dislike the most? And fighting's either on either of those.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly everyone mentions the fighting, and it's either really positive or really negative.
Yeah.
There's no one in the middle on the fighting, and it's really, really, it's gonna be really hard to then design fighting like at the end game for everyone to like.
Unless you change your difficulty to easy and you just like button mash weapons. I mean, I don't play on hard. I don't have the capacity to play on hard personally, and that's fine.
I think you need to test the game on hard.
I should, but then I'll just lose my mind.
I test on hard, so you're okay.
As long as some people test on hard, Here's a review from the feedback form. Update: fight combat was really hard for me and lost 2 times before getting through. To make it worse, the opponent can refill back their 9 hits, which is unfair in fantasy or real world combat. So whoever wrote that really didn't like the fighting, and that's okay.
I mean, that Claire fight is not the most. It had me frustrated a couple of times during testing, and then I thought I nailed it, went to record the video for the guide, failed twice, cheated it, like glitched one once, and then I was like, I can't post any of those because none of them make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out a strategy of, you're meant to play nets where she jumps, and then if she jumps and lands in the net, you get to smash her up, and then that's how you win the fight. I'm like, okay, I finally worked out the strategy. But for some people who just want to get to the scenes, I can understand how a fight with Claire where she just refills to 9 health all the time is really annoying. So yeah, I understand that. I think she should have a cap on rehealing. That would be my on that. But I'm not a coder. That's up for NLT to decide and work out.
Oh, yeah, and there's been. Sorry, I'm looking at what has been your least favorite aspect of the game, and someone just wrote Bako.
I don't understand why people don't like Bako. He's like Ash to me. He's funny.
Yeah, sometimes I think it can feel forced with him being there, but that's also part of what makes him him.
Yeah, because I just feel like he would be the kind of like kid who just tags on to his mum and then hangs around her crowd because he thinks he's cool. So he would just be in the place all the time being really annoying. That just is who his character is, I think. With Derailed from Symphony of the Serpent, we've gone to from the Genesis order, I mean, as we always do. We're terrible at that. If you had to go back, right, you lose your memory, and you had to go back and play any of the games, which one are you picking?
Well, I guess I have to say Lust Epidemic and start at the beginning.
No, you get to play one of them. You don't get to play all of them.
I can only play one?
Yeah.
So then how do I base my decision? How do I inform myself on which one? Is it only just like the Steam page store, or like the key or the feature art?
So I get like overthinking this way too much.
Yeah, I'm very specific with my brain and how I work. Like I need to know what the parameters are. If I had to pick one, how am I picking?
Based on the 3 games that you know of now, if you could lose your memory, you can go replay one of them for the first time and enjoy the experience of playing them again totally fresh. Which one would you pick?
I'd probably pick Treasure Nadia.
Right.
I think the grind aspect is kind of like a good thing to have, especially if you're starting from the beginning of a game and you really want to sink your teeth into it. Like I said, I'm also way more biased towards the characters like in that game, not just like the side characters. I mean, Henry's fine. But the women, like, I mean, Jessica's my favorite. And then you have Claire, Janet, and Naomi. Like, those are all top tier NLT verse characters for me. So that's what I would pick. And it has the fishing. And that's kind of like a fun little side thing to do. Be just like, okay, I said this in the first episode. I can only be so raw. So now it's time to go and do some fishing.
If you could take William and drop him into Treasure Nadia and kick Henry out, perfect.
Why?
Because just Henry's so annoying.
But people will say the same thing about William, because it's like, oh, he fumbled all these detective cases. He doesn't use his brain. Just because he's older doesn't mean that he actually knows what he's doing, blah, blah, blah.
I think what we are learning is Ethan is the best MC so far.
He's the least polarizing or controversial, I think.
Yes.
You know, the main characters in these types of games, I think, in general, are never going to be like incredibly deep as much as people may want them to be, because the person who's playing the game is the main character. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Outside of Lust Epidemic, you can change your name for your character.
That in and of itself is a way to deviate from who the character actually is and make it more personable to you. So then you therefore see yourself more as the main character, not like, oh, what's his name again? Oh, I didn't even know the main character had a name.
Yeah.
We've had those comments.
It's apart from when like Henry says something really dumb, yeah, like I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, but I mean, or you just don't care because you're just like, oh, he's dumb, whatever. Let's keep playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ethan definitely, I think, I don't want to say like he's the most safe, but he's definitely safe in the sense that like he kind of blends, you know, Henry and William together, because he's evidently a little bit more mature. But the amnesia thing definitely plays a part that makes him kind of like, oh, I don't necessarily know what's going on, which is like the golden retriever of Henry. So like you have a mixture of the two, which I think is good. I mean, finding a happy medium is always a good thing. What about you in terms of if you had to play one of the games memory wiped from the beginning and only one of the games, which one would you pick?
See, a part of me, right, would like to play TGO memory wiped, not a part of the team.
Yeah.
Just to like experience that, not knowing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such a different way of playing the game. And we could never get that back. Like, to those people who buy the game on Steam and get to play them raw, like, it's an interesting terminology, but you know what I mean? You know, Lust Epidemics is a great story to me, and it's the one that, like, yeah, I joined for TGO, but I went back and I was just like, this Lust Epidemics, like, the shit, dude, it's so good. But I'm also, like, I've got a big Dexter tattoo. Like, I like murder stuff. I like, you know, all of those, like, true crime stuff I watch all the time. So the whole, like, mystery of Lust Epidemic is, you know, it's like a big game of, is it Cluedo, isn't it, really? But with an adult setting, which I really like. I also wanted to go back to a question or a thing you said earlier about diversity of cast. we've had 4 Caucasian brunette MCs. At some point, we've got to change that, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you could blame like Western culture and all that kind of stuff in terms of like, you know, what do you see in like Hollywood with like superhero movies? And I'm not saying that this is the case now. Like, I mean, Captain America is now Falcon, Anthony Mackie, he's black. It's fantastic to see diversity.
Yeah.
But when you think historically over the course of like Hollywood, what about fashion, makeup, all this kind of stuff? It all leans white. And there's reasons for that. It's definitely a way bigger conversation, but it's essentially playing it safe. Not to say that like we shouldn't have a black character or like a black main character or a Southeast Asian main character or whatever.
I did ask the question to NLT, like, is there a chance that we could ever get character creation? And he just says it's just not going to be possible the way the animations are done, because you have to re-render the animations out separately, like different times, especially in this engine. Like if we were in like an Unreal Engine, or maybe not an Unreal Engine, because that's gone really well for Borderlands, it's a whole different conversation. But you get a different engine, then maybe you can have, create your own character like Sims, and then you can pick whatever ethnicity you want, and you can have pink hair or blue hair, and
you can change your body type, you can change your hairstyle, hair color, skin color, the size of your body parts. Like that would be the ideal, but it like you said, it's not feasible because every single animated shot is its own separate like movie file and all of those are done individually. So if you had to add character customization, just think about the amount of shots. Even if you had 3 different main characters, like you're tripling the work.
But you're not also tripling the work, you're also tripling the size of the game, which is already a problem for like Android users. What we've been discussing in the Discord is Android phones just can't deal with it, and you have to play on the web browser, and then it relies on your internet. And if you've got bad internet, it's going to take a while to load the game, because the game is, I know it's only 720p, and people are like, oh, why is it not 4K? And I'm like, have you tried to render a video in 4K? Do you want to know how long that takes?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Like, I know when, I think it was a Grand Tour show, they filmed one of their specials, and I can't remember how many hours worth of footage they had in 4K, but I think Clarkson said it took something like 2 months to render the footage.
That's insane.
Yeah, like, so we don't have time to be rendering in 4K. It's great as that would be. That's why the HD mods there. Use it when you're about to. It eventually is coming to all tiers on Patreon, I think.
Yeah, that's all back end stuff that we don't necessarily know. There's a whole bunch of logistics. We hope the HD mod packs will be available to everyone at every tier, and also I think available on Steam at some point, but don't quote me on that. The option is good. I'm personally not a quote unquote like pixel snob, but also like I'm not a huge gamer, right? Like I don't sit for hours a day and play a game where I need like a really good frame rate or bit rate or whatever the heck you want to say. I don't need X, Y, and Z.
I mean, you play games on a Switch, so I know that.
Exactly. Well, I've been playing a boatload of Stardew Valley, and that's like an 8-bit old school game.
Yeah.
If it's visually appeasing to my eye and I'm enjoying what I'm playing, I don't care how it looks.
Yeah.
Like currently I'm playing No Man's Sky, and I'm playing No Man's Sky on the Nintendo Switch, and I'm playing it on a TV in my living room. Does the game load very efficiently, and does it look great? No, but I enjoy it. So who cares? Oh, you're not getting the most optimal performance because you're not play. You need to play it on a gaming like no, just enjoy what you enjoy, and you don't have to just like shit on other people because you're not getting the highest quality that you may want. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm trying to say that respectfully to people. Like NLT does his best with the engine he uses. And
the time between updates, like, you know, he doesn't have 2 weeks to render these like shots out, you know, like by the time the shots have been animated, by the time everything's like the sets are being built, then everything's got to be done in those sets, and then all of the voice actor stuff has got to be done, put that all together, then it's got to be rendered, then it's got to be tested. Like, it's a tight schedule.
But Davey, isn't the game done?
You need to stop reading certain forums.
We are aware of what is being said, essentially, is what we can say.
We have eyes, we have ears, we have people who tell us stuff.
Yeah.
We don't need to go looking for it, we get told it. The other thing I want to talk about, because you were talking about diversity of cast when it comes to TGO, I'm going to actually go back to TGO and all of that, and we look at Treasure and Nadia had a little bit of diversity. Lust Epidemic had 0, right? If I'm thinking about it, right? If we talk about, they're all white characters, they're all Caucasian.
In Lust Epidemic, yeah, I would say, and then Treasure of Nadia, the only real, you know, diversity we have is like Naomi being kind of like a Latina is the way I kind of saw her.
Yeah, and then Parissa being the Asian masseuse.
Yeah, Priscilla. Those were the only two. The rest were all white. I mean, Diana, you could say she's like South American, but like white South American, because there are very like white South American people.
Well, I mean, her surname's Greek, so
yeah, I always thought she was like Argentinian for some reason. I don't know why. I just always thought that.
Yeah, I can see it.
But Greek obviously makes sense. She could pass as Greek. But do you think that Greek people are more non-white than white?
That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah.
It certainly is.
And then at TGO, we get a little bit more in that sense. And then I'll say we've probably got the same level in Symphony of the Serpent, if you include the side quest women.
So TGO, we had Melissa, who I would say is Southeast Asian, like brown. Then we have Kim, who I would say is like light-skinned black.
Yeah.
Who else?
Andrea. Is there anyone else?
Definitely not Ella.
No.
Ella is not Asian.
South African, if you can make the connection.
Just because she wields a katana doesn't mean that she's Asian. And then with Symphony of the Serpent, we have Olivia and Amira and Layla and Cleo. Although Cleo is way more like white looking than like brown Middle Eastern.
And she's based off a real person, so we know based off photos or paintings or whatever.
Yeah, there's historical, yeah. So there's a decent amount, and then we have Divya, and that's it. Well, and Lucy's kind of like a little bit of like a tanned olive for Lucy. Divya's brown.
Did you say Nia? I think you did.
Oh, Nia, yeah. Nia's like, I would say Nia's like black, but the thing with, you know, with black skin is there's so many like different like tones to it, right? Like you can have really light, dark skin, or you could be like super, super dark, you know, and the opposite end of that spectrum, it is white like you and me, right? Like it's our pigmentation.
Exactly. But the point I was trying to get to is if NLT did decide to go to a smaller cast for game number 5, and we went for a smaller setting with a smaller cast, he would struggle to then pick what characters are going to be in it when it comes to diversity to try and keep everyone appeased.
Yes, that's a good point. And that's, you know, that's something that like I feel like we should maybe grill him on. Not grill him, but like I feel like that's I feel like that's something that we could definitely ask him. Be just like, hey, if you were to scale the cast down more, how would you ratio the races of your characters? Like if you went down in the next game to 6 characters, again, 6 characters, and then maybe plus like an oracle and then like another, say like interactable character, so 8 total.
Well, the cruise ship idea has been in the Discord, isn't it? So say we get like some sort of mermaid or something that comes out of the sea.
Yeah, or there's like no, I'm not going to talk about the ski hill one because I'm not going to say there's going to be like a Bigfoot woman unless some people are into that thing.
Like a really dominant woman from the mountains.
Okay, she can pick up the main character and carry him anywhere.
I'm thinking of like that really big character from The Simpsons. She was in like some of them. She's like, "Oh, I smash."
Oh yeah. Okay, so cruise ship idea. Yeah, mermaid. Then you have like some type of like oracle guide type character, however that manifests. And then it's like there's 6 main women, and then it's like, okay, how do you ratio that? Do you do 2 18 to 24, 2 24 to like 35, and then 2 35 and up? And then of those 2, how do you break it down? Do you do the mother and the daughter as like a culturally, racially diverse pair? Because the past 3 games, they've all been white. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you develop the characters first?
Yeah.
And then decide what they look like?
Yeah. Or then maybe do you then throw in like a couple of side characters who like work on the ship somewhere and they fill in the gaps when it comes to diversity? You know what I mean? Like it's so, but then you start opening it up to more characters and then problems come again. So,
well, and there's also then a can of worms if you're going to do diversity with side characters, because then you're not making diversity necessarily like a priority of your cast when you could argue that
it's a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm. So just a reminder to everyone that the Steam sale is now on. So if you're interested in getting any of the 3 games on Steam, check it out. We appreciate your listening. If you can like the video on YouTube, if you can wish list the games on Steam, and if you can just leave us some comments in the Love Potion podcast channel on Discord, and also write feedback and give us questions, that'd be fantastic. We also will continue to scour the YouTube comments. Davey, I think this conversation about all 4 games really, and our own experiences with them and how we've perceived them is kind of like a fun way to engage in an NLT-based conversation, which we try to do on the Discord, and what the point of this podcast realistically was, because there's just so much to the games and there's so much to the experiences of the games that it's just fun to talk about. So I enjoyed myself. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah, I definitely want to encourage all of the people who listen to the podcast and listen to the episodes. Tell us about your experiences when it comes to these games as well. Where do you think each game highlighted? Where do you think each game failed in the sense of that? And, what your experiences with going through them has been. We obviously are now in the story group. We're in the testing. So we have a very different perspective when it comes to Symphony of Serpent. So we're trying to talk to you guys and gather the outside perspective as well, which we then do present to the story group and to NLT. And we say, oh, look, this is what is being said. What can be tweaked? What do we like? What don't we like? And then what is possible as well when it comes to inside the engine and, with time and scope and all the aspects like that. So definitely engage us in the discussion in the Discord, in the YouTube channel, or just, in our DMs as well. If you want to be a little bit more anonymous and just slide into the DMs, we are welcoming. We might not always get to you straight away because we're busy people, but we will try our best to engage you in that conversation, especially when it comes around to these games. And then is there anything else that you think we missed as well? Like, bring it up as a topic. We'll always recover it the next time we have one of these more rambly, chatty episodes. Obviously, no guest this time. Guest next will be Joraell. We're going to talk about his animations in the Symphony of the Serpent, also the 3 games that he has built, and why he enjoys animating over building games. And then get all your questions in ready for NLT as well on the 2nd of January. We'll probably record that mid to early December because, Christmas is a thing and, family celebrations and stuff like that. So we don't want to be recording late in the month on that one. I'd like to have the podcast done and dusted well before Christmas so we can enjoy that. I also have a mother's birthday just after Christmas, so it's a very busy week for me. In that sense...
Thank you for watching and or listening to the Love Potion podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.
Hit like, hit subscribe, and peace out.